Good morning, everyone. So, as we had already covered the discussion about the syllabus and other things in the workshop session, I'll advise that those who had not come that day, please go through the recording of the same. And in today's class, that we will be starting with the background of the subject of public administration. So as I said that I'll be taking somewhere around 2 to 3 classes, or around maybe some 3 to 4 classes, to discuss on the background of the subject, that how this subject came into existence, how there was a formation of state, what were the responsibilities of the state, then how the concept of democracy emerged, etc. Right? So, and this will be very important, especially from the viewpoint that when you write answers, you can at least every time, because public administrators, right? जो public administrators हैं, their duty is to take care of all the functions of the state, all the functions bestowed to them by the constitution, all the responsibilities given to them by the government, right? So let's see that how the state came into existence, because where does my public administrator lie? That public administration the term administration comes from the Latin word administere. Administere. This means to take care of. To take care of. That is the meaning of the word administere. To take care of what? To take care of all the public work. Right? To take care of all the public work, to take care of the complex task of the government, to take care of people, to take care of public interest. That is the meaning of public administration. Now, where does public administration lie? It is a part of the state, right? It is a part of the state, especially if we talk about the people who are into public administration or public administrators, that we have a state which has 3 different organs: the legislative, the executive, and the judiciary. Okay. And the judiciary. So we have these 3 organs of the state. Public administration lies as a part of the executive. There are 2 different types of executives. One is the political executive. One is the political executive, and the other is the permanent executive. Okay, one is the political executive and the other is the permanent executive. The permanent executive, as in, those whose possessions, those whose nature of job is permanent in nature. They are not elected by people. Their term tenure of work is fixed. And this is where the public administrators lie, the civil servants lie, that they are a part of the permanent executive, right? The civil servants, they are a part of the permanent executive. So if I have to reach at this point, first I should start from state. Let's look at that how this evolution of state happened. How this evolution of state happened. Now when we talk about state, there are certain theories, but because we do not have to study about a Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, etc. So over here, when I mention about the name of the scholar, it's not important, right? Always keep the copy of syllabus with you. Always keep this booklet with you because it has the syllabus, right? So we need to stick to the syllabus and maybe just go a little bit, beyond the syllabus so that, we have a greater, coverage, we have a better knowledge, better understanding. So we do not have to study scholars like Thomas Hobbes and John Locke, but the formation of state, that how the state was formed, right? How the state was formed, there are multiple theories, but one theory that captures the essence of the formation of state is the theory given by Thomas Hobbes, his social contract theory. his social contract theory. Now, when early humans began to exist, when they began to live, they were guided by what is called as that, we all have a natural way of life. We have a natural way of life. For example, probably the way you are sitting in the class, probably the way I'm standing in the class, it may not be my natural way of sitting or standing, right? हो सकता है हम घर में बैठते हो तो शायद है ना चेयर पे आराम से पैर ऊपर रख के बैठते हो, ठीक है? अगर हम घर में खड़ा है तो हम आराम से दीवार में से टेक लगा के खड़ा है, leaning against the wall. So when we are free to do whatever we want to, that's called a natural way of life. So as individuals, we are born free and we want to live as per our natural way of life. कि मेरा जो मन करे वो हम करेगा, ठीक है? अपना खुशी और अपना मर्जी से काम करेगा, right? So because of that, now this way of life which allows people to follow their natural instincts, to abide by their natural choices, to enjoy a complete liberty. Complete liberty. As individuals, we are freedom seeking. Yes or no? We are all freedom seeking. So a phase of evolution wherein that individuals followed or enjoyed maximum liberty. There was no restriction because, they were self-guided. They did whatever they wanted to do. That is called as the state of nature. So early humans lived in state of nature. State of nature. And a very, a standard technical way of defining state of nature is that it is that state where individuals enjoy absolute civil liberty, complete freedom to do whatever they want to do. So what is this state of nature? That over here, individuals enjoy absolute freedom. Individuals enjoy complete or absolute liberty. That they enjoy absolute liberty. There are no restrictions because people are free to live as the way they want to. But then what will happen in this? It is possible that the way I want to lead my life, it inhibits, it puts a restriction on the way you want to live your life. Right? So that is what happens, when we follow an absolute civil liberty, when we live under absolute liberty, then it is possible that my wishes, my way of life, my liberty, it actually puts restrictions on you. For example, if I want to play a very loud music at midnight, it disturbs somebody's right to sleep. Right? So I have a freedom to do whatever I want to do. I have a freedom to move my hand. It doesn't mean that I will come close to your cheeks and move my hand. No. So there has to be certain restrictions on the way people lead their life, or else what will happen when people enjoyed absolute liberty, complete freedom, no restrictions, then one individual's freedom, it restricted the other individual's freedom. Right? One's way of life, it came in conflict with others' way of life. अब मेरा मन करेगा गाड़ी चलाने का कि नहीं, मेरा मन है मैं wrong side से चलाऊं. Then I'm causing trouble to people who are coming from the other side, right? So, in the state of nature, although one good thing was that there was absolute civil liberty, there was absolute freedom, but then this civil liberty, this freedom became a cause of conflict between individuals. Became a cause of conflict, and therefore war became the norm. Life was short, life was brutal, life was nasty. Why? Because everyone was free to practice, everyone was free to follow, everyone was free to lead their life the way they wanted. And hence, that one's freedom, one's freedom obstructed others' choices, and this became a reason for conflict, and hence life was short, brutal, and nasty, because the conflicts, they led to war. Conflicts led to war, so life was short, brutal, and nasty, and therefore people realized that state of nature is not in the common interest of all. That state of nature is not in the common interest of all, that we need somebody to tell us what is right, what is wrong. We actually need to give up on our absolute liberty. Till the time we all enjoy absolute liberty, right? Till the time we all enjoy absolute liberty, right? And I'm telling you, especially those who are there in the GS I don't give much, dictation. Now over here, because you have to write a lot in your public art, in any, optional subject, so I'll be giving you a detailed dictation as well, right? I told in the workshop class as well. So be prepared to write a little fast. At times it can be frustrating to write fast. Kabhi kabhi chutega, don't bother, right? Keep on writing. You can, if you miss a word or something, you can take it from your friends later, okay? Thank you. So, over here, that because of the state of nature, life was short, life was brutal, life was nasty. And hence people realized that if we continue to enjoy civil liberty to the maximum extent in an unrestricted manner, then probably we will continue to lead a short, brutal, and nasty life. And this compulsion created by this short, brutal, and nasty life, it made them realize that they all need to give up on their liberty. And hence, because of this, that people decided to give up on the absolute liberty, not liberty, but on the absolute liberty that is compromised liberty to some extent. Compromised liberty to some extent. Okay, that they compromised their civil liberty to some extent. And to the extent that they compromised their liberty, the amount of liberty that I am giving up, that actually became the authority of an entity called state. Because we are all giving up our liberty. When I'm giving up my liberty, this liberty is going to somebody, right? मैं अपनी liberty को compromise कर रहा हूं, then the amount of liberty that I have compromised, it will go to somebody. It will go to somebody in the form of their authority, that they can tell me that, look, you cannot do this. Liberty is absence of restriction. I have decided that no, I will give up on some part of my liberty. That means I will give up on some part of my, a restriction-free life. I am okay accepting a bit of restriction. That means now there will be somebody who will put those restrictions on me, right? So this liberty which was compromised, this compromised liberty, became the source of a central authority. Became the source of a central authority, because everyone, we all in the class decided to give up a bit on our liberty. So all of us, we gave a little bit of our liberty. that compromised liberty now became the source of one central authority. Now that central authority will tell us, look, you cannot do this, you cannot do that. And we have agreed that, okay, fine, there would be a central authority which will put restrictions on us, because in the absence of a central authority to put restrictions on us, we will continue to lead our life the way we want, and then life will become short, brutal, and nasty. So this central authority, this came to be called as a state. This came to be called as a state. So any central political authority is called as a state. In India, popularly, we called India as a country, and, you know, for example, Arunachal, Mizoram, Assam as states. But even India is a state. Any political authority, any structure that has some authority is called a state. Okay. So how the state was formed, although there are different theories, but one of the most popular theory is the state society, this contract theory. That the state was formed as a part of contract between state and society, that society will give up on its liberty to some extent, and that will be the source of creation of state. Right? That will be the source of creation of state. And this is how that state was formed, as a part of the state society contract theory. What is the contract? That, look, society will have to give up a bit on its liberty. Society will have to give up a bit on its freedom, and that compromised freedom, the compromised liberty, will become the authority of the state. Right? That compromised freedom, that compromised liberty will become the authority of the state. So I hope if you have understood, then tell me that a state which is a very, very powerful state, a state which is a very, very strong state, in that state people will enjoy more civil liberty or less civil liberty? Less civil liberty, right? Why? Because what is the source of authority of the state? The source of authority of the state is nothing but the freedom, the liberty that you and I have compromised. The liberty that you and I have compromised. And look, that is called as the paradox in a democracy today. In a democracy, you see that we are very enticed, we are very happy with the idea of a strong state. है ना? हम हमेशा क्या बोलते हैं, स्टेट वीक है, स्टेट पावरफुल होना चाहिए, और जब स्टेट पावरफुल होता है तो फिर हम रोना शुरू करते हैं कि स्टेट हमारा लिबर्टी छीन रहा है. दैट इज अ पैराडॉक्स. पैराडॉक्स समझते हैं? पैराडॉक्स मतलब अ काइंड ऑफ अ सेल्फ कॉन्ट्राडिक्टरी थिंग. एज अ सिटीजन आई वॉन्ट माई स्टेट टू बी वेरी वेरी स्ट्रांग, कि मेरा स्टेट हमें प्रोटेक्ट करे. स्टेट शुड बी वेरी स्ट्रांग. व्हाई? बिकॉज एज अ पार्ट ऑफ द स्टेट सोसाइटी कॉन्ट्रैक्ट थ्योरी, the state has to use its authority for the protection of the society. But then the problem is, when the state flexes its muscles, when the state shows its authority, what is that authority? The restriction that is being put on you and I. So stronger the state, the lesser is the civil liberty that we enjoy. The more limited the state is, greater the civil liberty that we enjoy. And that is how in Indian polity, right, when I teach, I will assume that we all know nothing about whatever we are teaching in class, right? Whatever we are learning in class. So in Indian polity, you have to study about constitution. In constitution, there is a very important part of the constitution which is called as fundamental rights. Fundamental rights, the rights which are essential to the existence of people, for the development of human beings. Fundamental rights, if you look at the fundamental rights, they are positively worded or negatively worded? They are negatively worded. The state cannot, the state shall not, the state cannot. Yes or no? They are all negatively worded. The state cannot discriminate on the basis of X, Y, Z, right? The state cannot do this. The state cannot arrest somebody without a proper warrant, right? हमेशा not है. क्यों? किसको हमें रोकने की जरूरत है? जिसके पास authority है. Whom do we need to put a check on? Those entities that have authority.
that state has authority, and the source of authority was the liberty that people earlier enjoyed. Now, because people have given that authority to the state, so the state need to be reminded that, look, you cannot use your authority to do all these wrong things. And that is why in Indian polity it is said that the part of fundamental rights, it is aimed to promote the idea of a limited government. Limited government. It is not with the idea of limited citizens, limited society, no, limited government. क्यों हम government को limit में डाल रहे हैं? Because who has authority? State has authority, the government has authority, and moreover, who gave them the authority? It is the people who gave them authority, and therefore state needs to be reminded that you cannot use the authority to violate the freedom of people. Right? You can only use authority to create an order in society. To create an order in society. ये बताता है the what aspect of the formation of state, the how aspect, that how the state was formed. And why the state was formed? To ensure that the big fish does not eat away the small fish. That the big fish does not eat away the small fish. That the powerful people in the society, because if you live in the state of nature, and if we are weak, marginalized, middle class, then there is nobody to protect us from the atrocities of the powerful, the rich, the influential. Today, why you and I, to whatever, with all the difficulties that we face, but why you and I still think that, we live freely in this world? Because there is a state, there is a central authority. If our rights are violated by the powerful people in the society, then whom do we approach to? We approach to the state. Right? We approach to the state. Because I gave up my liberty, and I gave this liberty to whom? To the state. Fine? So this is the idea of formation of state. In fact, Thomas Hobbes इतना बिलीव करता था कि लोगों को अपना सिविल लिबर्टी कॉम्प्रोमाइज करना ही पड़ेगा, so that there is some authority with the state, that he even told people that, remember, at times you will have to accept the corruption, at times you will have to accept the misuse of central authority to some extent, because if you challenge, if you replace, if you bring the central authority to an end, state ने कुछ गलत किया, and the society reacted and destroyed the central authority, then basically you are taking a risk of going back to the state of nature. That you are taking a risk of going back to the state of nature. तो उसने बोलता है, Thomas Hobbes बोलता है that basically tolerance towards corruption, a bit of tolerance, थोड़ा बहुत हमें बर्दाश्त करना पड़ेगा, the wrongdoing of the state, because it is the price that we are paying for not going back to the state of nature. अगर हर एक छोटी मोटी बात पे, if you keep on destroying the state, right? If you keep on destroying the state, then in that case, there is a risk that every now and then we will keep on going back to the state of nature. War will be the norm. Life will again be short, brutal, and nasty. And again, it reminds the state that, remember, that if you misuse your central authority, do not forget that your authority is nothing but the freedom that people compromised. So they will take back their freedom. You will cease to exist. Your existence will come to an end. So it cautions the state, but it also reminds people that on every small or big issue, if on every little bit of misuse of authority, yes, you have to warn the state, you have to hold the state accountable, but if you destroy the state, then probably you are risking going back to the state of nature. ये है Thomas Hobbes का state society contract theory. See, in the first 15 to 20 classes, हम लोग अपना दिमाग bare minimum लगाएंगे. In a sense, कोई भी theory जो आएगी, हमारे दिमाग में there will be some idea that no, this theory is not correct. Yes or no? कि ये तो गलत बोल रहा है, ऐसा नहीं. all good. In fact, that is what we will do after some 20-25 days. But at present, to criticize somebody, you need to know that what is their theory, yes or no? You need to know that what is the theory. If I am not a believer, I need to know that what does the religious text of different religions say. Because my belief is in contradiction to all the religion, then I must know. If I don't know, then I just cannot say, Meri Marzi, I don't believe in any God. I need to know that what is the viewpoint on God of different religions of the world. I may not agree to it. So remember, whenever that, a thought comes to your mind, ye to aisa nahi hota hai, it's all right. We are studying somebody's point of view. So you need to accept it. Unless and until you don't know that, then we will not be able to evaluate or analyze their theory. Okay. So this is the state-society contract theory. I have introduced this theory because it best explains that how the state was formed. And why the state was formed is best captured in the theory of Chanakya, that Chanakya says that the state was brought to prevent Matsya Nyaya. Mats is machli. Mats is fish. That it came to prevent us from the law of the fish world. The law of the fish world is that the big fish eats away the small fish. So if we are ordinary people, who is our protector against the powerful people? It is the state. So the objective of state is best defined by Chanakya's theory, which is that the state shall protect. The state shall protect people from Matsya Nyaya. That is law of the fish world, wherein the big fish eats away the small fish. Matsya Nyaya. The big fish eats away the small fish. Okay, so now we have understood that what led to the formation of state, and by and large, initially, what was the objective of the state. Now, because the central authority initially was one single central authority who was given this responsibility. One single central authority, one authority, that means mono, and authority, which is arc, and there how that monarchy came to be established. There is not one single authority. Today the authority is dispersed, right? The government has the authority, but does the legislatures have authority, yes or no? They can hold the government accountable. They can ask questions, and the government is bound to reply. And look at the judiciary, it can declare a decision of the government as null and void, right? So, today we have a dispersed authority. We do not have a concentrated authority. But initially, when a central authority came, it came in the form of one single central authority, right? And hence, the state, it emerged as a monarchical state. That the state became a monarchy state. Why people agreed that, okay, let's have a monarchy? Because the individual was capable of controlling the society. The individual was capable of creating an order in society. Order. Right? See, there is a difference between law and order. जो law and order बोलते हैं ना, order का मतलब that there is peace and tranquility. Although, I'm just in beginning, be prepared, there is a saying that, the learning begins with unlearning. So there will be some, kabhi I will go in bits and pieces here and there. just remain calm even if you अगर लग रहा है कि अरे अभी यहां पे हम था फिर कोई दूसरा टॉपिक करने लगा. आई एम जस्ट इंट्रोड्यूसिंग यू सर्टेन टर्म्स, दैट्स इट. Order many a times is not a good thing also. When I say order, order is not a good thing at times. Many a times, challenge to an order is a sign of a liberal and progressive society. For example, patriarchy is a social order. Yes or no? That where men dominate, men rule, and women abide by the instructions issued by the men. So that is also an order. लेकिन ऑर्डर क्या इंश्योर करता है? दैट देयर इज नो केओस इन द सोसाइटी. वर्ना सिस्टम वॉज एन ऑर्डर, बट इट वॉज अ डिस्क्रिमिनेटरी सिस्टम. So it is not that order is not always good, but order is necessary for the smooth existence of society, because in the absence of order, that there will be complete chaos, right? So people agreed to have a monarch, one single ruler, because he was capable of creating an order in the background of the state of nature. कि जब स्टेट ऑफ नेचर से हम बाहर निकलने की कोशिश कर रहे थे, दैट दोज पीपल हु वर केपेबल ऑफ एंश्योरिंग एन ऑर्डर इन द सोसाइटी, दे वर अलाउड टू रूल, एंड दैट इज हाउ केम द मोनार्कियल स्टेट. और मोनार्कियल स्टेट in general, the nature of monarchical state to begin with was that it was a police state. Police state. Police state मतलब जो बोलता है ये करना सही है, ये करना गलत है. You can do this, you cannot do this. It protects us. And because it was a police state, it was telling us what can be done, what cannot be done. And also, it was protecting us from any foreign attack, any foreign invasion, as well as Matsanyaya, that protecting the weak people in the society from the atrocity of the powerful and the strong, and therefore that the king was asking for that look, I am protecting you. I am protecting you, I am protecting your territory, I am protecting your agriculture, right? History थोड़ा बहुत अगर आप पढ़ा है, तो first time king ने tax कब मांगना शुरू किया? जब king ने ये assure किया कि मैं आपकी territory को protect करूंगा. Early human beings, they were wandering people. Wandering. तो अगर मैं wandering आदमी हूं, मैं बस अपना जानवर लेके इधर उधर घूमता हूं, and if somebody is attacking me, I have a simple choice. I will either fight or I will run away. But when humans started to practice agriculture, now it was very, very important that there is one powerful person who protects the territory, or else you will lose your crop production. If we are nomadic people, then we can avoid an attack by running away also. But if we are settled farmers, now if we are attacked, we cannot leave our agricultural field and run away. That is why that people accepted a powerful person to be the central authority, because because these people will protect their land, their territory, their agricultural field. When you study history, आप देखेंगे that kingship, the strong kingship emerged during later Vedic age in India. And the concept of taxation also began during later Vedic age in India. Why? Because the king will need police, military to protect the area. उसको खाना पीना उसको खिलाना पड़ेगा, because these people, they will not do farming. They will be just protecting the land, and therefore in return that the monarch started asking for tax. So it was also a tax collecting state. It was also a tax collecting state. So the ancient states were police state. That means they had a strong military to maintain an order in the society, and at the same time that they also used to protect the people from any outside invasion. To maintain this army, that the king started to collect tax. Okay. And now because the king has started to collect tax, over a period of time, when people felt that the burden of tax is increasing and increasing, over a period of time, that over time, tax burden started to increase, and therefore that demands of people also increased. For example, if suppose today, if the government does not ask for taxes, right? If the government charges us very, very less tax, then probably we will not have much expectation from the government. But if the government charges us a lot of tax, then there would be a high expectation from the government, yes or no? In fact, if I can bring just for your lateral information, that there was a former economic advisor of India, उसने एक इकोनॉमिक सर्वे डॉक्यूमेंट आता है, इकोनॉमिक सर्वे है ना, बजट के जस्ट पहले रिलीज होता है, उसमें उसने लिखा था that in India the taxes are on the lower side, we should raise the taxes. For example, income tax limit is highest is 30%. If you go to the northern European countries, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, the taxes go up to 50%. उसने बोला टैक्सेस को बढ़ा दो, डायरेक्ट टैक्सेस को बढ़ा दो, इनकम टैक्स को, बिकॉज टुडे व्हेन वी आर पेइंग लेस टैक्स, व्हाट मैटर्स टू अस is who should be in the government, people who belong to our caste, people who belong to our tribe, people who belong to our religion, language. When you pay half of the money that you earn, then probably you will think that who should be in power? People who will make good use of the money that I'm paying to the government. That when people pay less taxes, their expectations from the government is low. When people pay high taxes, then they are always on the toes कि ये काम क्यों नहीं हुआ? In India, we have a high tolerance towards any form of corruption, right? We have a high tolerance towards delays in project, है ना? Delays in project, मतलब किसी ट्रेन अगर 10 मिनट लेट आई तो कोई नहीं बोलता है लेट हुआ, है ना? 10 मिनट 20 मिनट लेट होना माना ही नहीं जाता है लेट हुआ. लेट मतलब कि सुबह पहुंचने वाला था, शाम में पहुंचा, है ना, तब जाके लेट हुआ. We have developed so much of acceptance towards it. So you know that why? Because probably we are paying far less tax as compared to what is being paid in the European countries. So when taxes started to increase, the demands of people also started to increase. And in this background, that, you know, the first challenge to the authority of the king came in the form of Renaissance. जब Renaissance हुआ यूरोप में, what is the meaning of Renaissance? The meaning of Renaissance is rebirth of ideas. पहले माना जा रहा था कि king has divine power. Why? Because the religious institutions whose taxes were waived off by the king, those religious institutions told that king has divine power. Right? Why this theory of divine power? Because the religious institutions, their taxes were waived off by the king. The ordinary people used to pay taxes, but religious institutions, their taxes were waived off by the king. And hence, those religious institutions, they told people that your king has divine power. They are blessed by God. And people did not have the courage to challenge the state even when their demands were not fulfilled. They did not have the challenge. Why? Because of the concept of divine power of kings. Look at in India, look at in the Western world, that even in the Western world, that the Roman Catholic Church used to declare that the kings have divine power. And because of that even when the demands were not getting fulfilled, that people never challenged the authority of the state. But then came Renaissance in Europe, है ना? The 14th century, 13th, 14th century Renaissance in Europe. And Renaissance का मतलब होता है rebirth of new ideas. That there was a rebirth. People started to challenge all the belief, all the norms that were guiding their life for time immemorial. शुरुआत से जो अभी तक बिलीफ चला आ रहा था कि सन दिख रहा है घूमते हुए, so earth is static, the sun is moving. All this belief was getting challenged that earth is flat. मत जाओ वहां पे, देखो दिख रहा है that the sea is getting over, you will fall down on the other side. जो sea voyages पे जाते थे उनको मना किया जाता था, don't go on the sea voyage, because दिख रहा है ना वहां पे खत्म हो रहा है समंदर. If you stand on the shore, it appears that the sea is getting over there. So earth is flat. Earth is flat, yahan tak dikh raha hai, isko cross karoge, gir jaoge. This was the belief system. But some adventurous people, some liberal people, they started to challenge all the ideas, and therefore even the idea of an absolute monarch was slowly getting challenged. At least when the idea of divine power got challenged, then people थोड़ा सा उनके अंदर courage आया कि अब हम ये डिमांड और जोर जोर से अपना डिमांड और जोर से आगे रखेगा. And in this background, that the first revolution came in the form of, in 1680s in England, that there was a glorious revolution. A glorious revolution happened in England in 1680s, wherein for the first time there was a rebellion by the common people against the king. But then kingship was not abolished. King was defeated, but the institution of kingship was not abolished. ऐसा नहीं हुआ कि किंग को हटा के अब वो बोल रहे हैं that it will be people's rule. No, kingship was not abolished. Even till today, kingship is not abolished in Britain. लेकिन because people were not exposed to any other form of rule, लोगों ने किंग को हराया, उसके अगेंस्ट रिबेल किया, but then now they allowed kingship to continue. They asked the king that, look, now you cannot rule as per your own whims and fancy. Now you cannot rule as per your own whims and fancy. You have to rule as per a charter issued, that you have to rule as per a charter which is issued by the people. You continue to rule, but you will have to rule as per a charter of demand issued by people. This charter is popularly called as the Magna Carta. The Magna Carta. So you will have to rule as per a law. And in fact, there is a very popular term associated with the Glorious Revolution, that the Glorious Revolution changed Rex Lex to Lex Rex. Rex Lex मतलब होता है the ruler is law, king is law. और ग्लोरियस रेवोल्यूशन के बाद क्या हो गया? लॉ इज किंग. अर्लियर द किंग वॉज लॉ. किंग सुबह उठा, उसको जो मन किया उसने बोल दिया, दैट बिकेम द लॉ. इवनिंग ही सेड समथिंग एल्स, दैट बिकम्स द न्यू लॉ. So earlier, before the glorious revolution, because there was no charter, there was no rule by which the king had to rule, and therefore that the king himself was the law, the ruler was law. But after the glorious revolution, because people presented a charter of demand that, look, you continue to rule, but then you will have to fulfill all these demands. So now the king continues to rule, but the king has to abide by a law, a charter, a Magna Carta. He cannot rule as per his own whims and fancy. And hence the idea of Rex Lex got converted into Lex Rex. Over here, इसका मतलब होता है king is law, और इसका मतलब होता है law is king. Okay, king is law and law is king. And hence for the first time at a very global level, that a constitution, so this can be called as the initial step, that there was a formation of a constitution. That in some manner a constitution came. Although when we study in Indian history, we say that, Ashoka also came out with his code of conduct. So that was also his constitution. But then in case of Ashoka, Ashoka presented that what needs to be done. Ashoka ने बोला लोगों को कि आप ये कर सकते हैं, ये नहीं कर सकते हैं. Over here, people are telling their king that, look, you can do this, you cannot do this. So this is a constitution in true sense, that the idea of constitution got developed which is putting restriction on the power of the king, right? Constitution got developed, which is putting restriction on the power of the king. Now understand that constitution is a document. Constitution is a document, it's a letter. A good constitution must have the spirit of constitutionalism. Constitution is a rule, it's a regulation. For example, even North Korea has a constitution that you cannot laugh at public places, right? You have to have a common hairstyle. That is also a law, yes or no? That is also a law. For example, are there fundamental rights in China? In the constitution of China, is there mention of fundamental rights? Yes. But what is missing is what in India's constitution is mentioned in Article 32. India के constitution में articles हैं, उसमें Article 32 है, जो हमें एक fundamental right देता है that if our rights are violated, we can directly go to the Supreme Court. That we can directly go to the court. In China, this right to constitutional remedy is absent. मतलब स्टेट ने राइट दे रखा है लेकिन गारंटी नहीं दिया है कि अगर राइट वायलेट होगा तब you can do nothing about it. So that is practically that the fundamental rights are present in letter, बस लिखा हुआ है, spirit में नहीं है, because there is no remedy that I am offered if my rights are violated, right? There is no remedy if my rights are violated. There is nobody to protect me if the state violates my rights. But then it has its own constitution, right? What is missing is the spirit. What is the spirit of a constitution? The spirit of a constitution is that a constitution must put a practical limitation on the authority of the state and must give reasonable freedom to the people, right? That constitution is different from a term. So I'm writing over here term constitutionalism. Constitution is different from constitutionalism. A constitution is merely a letter, but the true spirit of a constitution is constitutionalism, wherein that what is constitutionalism? A constitution that puts a reasonable limitation, restriction on the authority of the state and guarantees maximum civil liberty. Constitutionalism, it is a spirit, it is a feature, it is a trait that puts reasonable restriction on the reasonable limitation on the authority of the state, and at the same time it upholds, it promotes civil liberty. So practically today all the countries of the world have constitution, but all the countries of the world do not uphold constitutionalism, right? That all the countries of the world, they have constitution, but all the countries of the world, they do not uphold the idea of constitutionalism, right? That they do not uphold the idea of constitutionalism. अगर आप इंडियन पॉलिटी जब पढ़ना शुरू करेंगे, उसमें बार बार एक टर्म आएगा that Supreme Court ने बोला that fine, I'm giving this judgment because yes, the letter of the Constitution says something, but then the spirit of the Constitution means something else. How many of us have never studied Indian polity? Okay. So, उसमें for example, हमारा एक, Article 21 बोलता है right to life and personal liberty. तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने बोला right to life. Right to life does not mean that I'm breathing air and I'm alive, right? The letter of the constitution is saying right to life, मतलब आप जिंदा हैं, आपको जिंदा रहने का right है. Supreme Court through its liberal interpretation that look, the constitution maker did not mean that right to life is that you are breathing oxygen. No. Right to life means that you have a right to a dignified life. Dignified life. That I'm a human being. I have a right to a dignified life. And therefore, that there are so many rights which are available to people today, which were brought because of the liberal interpretation of the Supreme Court ने बोला, letter writes right to life, but the spirit says right to dignified life. Therefore, you have a right to sleep. If I take your classes from say 1 a.m. to 3 a.m., you can go to the court and lodge a complaint that my right to life has been violated, right to dignified life has been violated, because I don't have right to sleep. Right? You see that nowadays liberal legislations are coming. Abhi, a legislation is being discussed wherein the employers cannot call the employee after office hours. Why? Because that is why I am working. Work is not the only aspect of my life. There is a personal life as well. There is a family life as well. तो मैं 10 बजे रात में डिनर कर रहा हूं. Why is my boss calling me? ये काम हुआ, ये नहीं किया, मेल कर दो. Right? So there is right to dignified life. You see that at present that there is a member of parliament, right? There is a member of parliament from Delhi. No, he's from Punjab now. Sorry, that member of parliament who is taking up the cause of the gig workers. Gig economy समझते हैं? GIG, gig. Gig economy बोलते हैं जो platform workers होते हैं. For example, those who work on any web platform. Say Zomato delivery guys, AP Eats, the Flipkart. So they make so many rounds throughout the day, yes or no? But they hardly earn any income, peanuts. So many a times that, their right to dignified life appears to be violated. That they are taking, hundreds of rounds in any weather condition. And the companies, what they are promising? That delivery, instant delivery in 10 minutes. You look at good number of accidents today. Good number of accidents. आप देखो वो Zomato delivery guys, ये सारे इनका होता है. Why? Because there is a sense of urgency. If you don't deliver in 10 minutes, the incentives get cut. Right? So it is a kind of a, as alleged by the member of parliament, never write the names of people, but just because we are in a class, Raghav Chadha, the member of parliament, Pariniti Chopra's husband. Okay. If you don't know Raghav Chadha, okay. So Raghav Chadha, that he is raising this issue in the parliament that we must come out with a law to protect the gig workers, gig economy workers, because the spirit of constitution says right to dignified life. This is not a dignified life that I am forced, I am compelled to deliver something in 10 minutes, even if it is raining, in the scorching heat, raining, है ना, बारिश हो रहा है, लैंडस्लाइड आया, अब मैं उसमें कैसे जाऊं 10 मिनट में इंस्टेंट डिलीवरी करने. So that is the spirit of law. Spirit of law की जब भी हम बात करेंगे, we are getting into the domain of constitutionalism, right? And now, when constitution and constitutionalism started to get highlighted, when people started to put pressure on the king that, look, you have to fulfill our demands, that means the democratic demands started to come up. People were asking that, you must do our welfare. Welfare. कि आपका काम सिर्फ police state और tax collecting state का नहीं है. So because now people started presenting their charter of demands, therefore in the Western world came the idea of a welfare state. In the Western world, there came the idea of a welfare state. That why do we need a welfare state? Or why that people were asking for a welfare state? Because for the first time, they got the right to make their own constitution. And based on this, that people are demanding the state to provide more to the people, because now king cannot decide everything by himself. Now happened the birth of not absolute monarchy, but constitutional monarchy. Because the constitution was drafted, now came the phase of a constitutional monarchy, that okay, the monarch will be the single authority, but he will have to rule as per the constitution, as per the rules, as per the charter of demand, which have been presented by the people. So from an absolute monarchy, that now we move towards constitutional monarchy. And in the constitutional monarchy, that because people's demands were getting recognized, so people demanded that we want welfare state. We want a welfare state. And then they realized that when in true sense we will have our welfare state, when common people, they are a part of the sovereign government, they are a part of the government, and therefore the demand of a welfare state, when it was not getting fulfilled, this led to movements that resulted into the formation of a democratic, a republic state. Right? That welfare state led to the idea of a republic state. What is the meaning of republic? Republic का मतलब होता है, इंडिया के कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के प्रियम्बल में लिखा हुआ है रिपब्लिक, राइट? रिपब्लिक का मतलब होता है where the head of the state is elected. Head of the state is neither nominated nor hereditary. Head of the state is elected. The head of the Indian state is the President of India. The President of India is elected, not directly by us, but the MLAs and MPs whom we elect, they in turn elect the President, and therefore that the head of the state in India is elected. So we are a republic, but is Britain a republic? Kya Britain republic hai? Nahi, because the head of the state is the monarch, right? And therefore it's not a republic. And hence came the idea of republic, that the head of the state is elected. Earlier, that the head of the state was elected by a small group of people. फिर धीरे धीरे जब all the people started getting empowered, then the idea of democracy broadened, that all the people got the right to vote. In fact, most of the democracies of the world earlier, they did not have universal adult franchise, that everyone did not have the right to vote. So over a period of time, that this gave birth to the idea of a true democracy as well. True democracy as well. And now that we have a democratic form of government, wherein that that the governments do not enjoy an absolute power. Why? Because their authority is checked by people. People are voting their government. If the government does not work for them, then the government will be replaced. A new government will be brought. Okay, a new government will be brought. And because there is a concept of a limited government now, a limited government, that the government cannot have absolute authority in its own hand, so the state got divided, right? The state, because welfare state, welfare, लोगों का welfare, लोगों को protect करना है, so the government was asked to work for the people and to check whether the government is working as per law or not. That the idea of modern judiciary came, etc. And hence the state got divided into its three different elements: the legislative, the executive, and the judiciary. The state got divided into three different parts: the legislative, the executive, and the judiciary. Okay. So people earlier, they laid down very, very big objectives. उन्होंने अच्छे objectives तो ले आए. That in the constitution they came out with all the wonderful objectives. But the problem was that they did not have an idea of how to implement the objectives that they had decided. The state came out with all the noble objectives, but it lacked the efficiency. It lacked the efficiency, the effectiveness to implement the ideas. So, that democracy, it provided, all noble objectives, that it laid down all the good objectives. But the problem was that these objectives were not implemented properly. Because of the lack of capacity, because of the capacity constraints, that these objectives were not implemented properly. And therefore, that later, that there was a realization that we need a specialized group of people to implement the objectives which are decided by people, and hence happened the birth of public administration. Right, the birth of public administration. Why? Because the democratically elected government, अब इसका क्या है? I will be frequently using a term which is called as dysfunctionality. ये आगे तरह, तो उसका मतलब क्या होता है? Dysfunctionality. Dysfunctionality का मतलब होता है that somebody is performing a function and the intention, the objective is really good, the system is working fine, लेकिन उसके कारण अलग से कुछ खराब भी हो जा रहा है. So that's called a dysfunctionality. Okay, that's called a dysfunctionality. For example, suppose if I'm teaching you, right? So it is serving a purpose, it is serving a function. But then it might have a dysfunctionality that you become too dependent on my teaching alone, and you are not probably putting in good effort from your side. So that is a dysfunctionality of this classroom teaching. That dysfunctionality, that police require authority. In the absence of power, the police will not be able to function. But dysfunctionality is that the same power puts a lot of restrictions on people. So that is called a dysfunctionality. For example, democracy is good, yes or no? But what is the dysfunctionality? That democracy is often majoritarian in nature. Majoritarian. That in a democracy, it says of the people, by the people, for the people. But in true sense, if you see, it is of the majority, by the majority, for the majority. That the majority has a clear-cut advantage when it comes to any democratic decision. And that is why Dr. Ambedkar on the floor of the Constituent Assembly said that even democracy, which is one person, one vote, is no guarantor to the rights of minority, and therefore that the Constitution of India shall have additional protection for the minority community, because majority has the power in a democracy to protect itself, but the minorities may lack that power to protect themselves, right? To protect themselves. So, so that is why that minorities require some extra protection. So the dysfunctionality of democracy was when people started to participate in politics, right? What was happening? That because to excel in democracy, you need huge support of people. To excel in democracy, जैसे राजा, the king to have absolute control, वो क्या कर रहा था? King religious institutions का tax waive off कर रहा था, ताकि religious institutions क्या बोले? That the king has divine power, blessed by gods. वो बड़े बड़े landlords का tax waive off कर दे रहा था, so that the other powerful people also support the king. But then when democracy came, when the concept of one person, one vote came, when people started to elect their government, उसका dysfunctionality क्या था? That if I am today, I mean, it's very relatable that today, for any elected representative to get elected, to win the election, has to make so many promises, even unjustified promises to people, yes or no? Many assurances are given that to win election, probably you have to manage people कि ठीक है, हम वोट तब देंगे जब तुम हमारे एरिया में ये करोगे, नौकरी दोगे, ऐसे करोगे, all kind of give and take happens. Give and take happens in a democracy. उसको बोलते हैं quid pro quo. Give and take को बोलते हैं quid pro quo. There are a lot of quid pro quo happens in democracy. है ना? That you look, people ask for money, people ask for jobs, right? कि अगर आप elect हुए तो हमको ये contract देना होगा, then only I will vote for you. So in a democracy also, that there is lot of public pressure on the representatives of people, और इसीलिए जब democratically elected government आना शुरू हुआ, parallelly the spoils system also continued. Spoils system किसको बोलते हैं? Spoils system जो राजा महाराजा के टाइम में चल रहा था. Spoils system, that I am the king, मुझे जिसको मन करेगा मैं finance minister बना दूंगा. So that is spoils system. In spoils system, there is no preference for merit, there is only a preference for proximity with the leader. मैंने इसको क्यों फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर बनाया? क्योंकि ये मुझसे क्लोज है. मैंने इसको क्यों मिलिट्री कमांडर बनाया? क्योंकि ये मुझसे क्लोज है या मेरे फैमिली का है. It was expected that with democracy, the spoil system will get over, but then it did not get over because the political parties that came to rule, now they came to rule with the support of so many people. So what they started doing, they started nominating their political workers or their supporters to key positions. To key positions. That they started to nominate their own political party members, their own workers to key positions. So the spoils system continued. It was called as spoils system in America. It was called as the patronization system in England. The spoils system in America and the patronization system in England. Keep patronize. आज मैं, like suppose if I have become the MLA, if I have become the MP, if I have become the minister, chief minister, prime minister, then I will put my people, those who are ideologically close to me, to important position. Merit is secondary. I will not consider merit. For example, in India, especially people who have not studied polity till now, can you guess which position is a spoils position? आप अपने आसपास किसी ऐसे आदमी को देखते हैं रिक्रूट होते हुए जो बिना एग्जाम दिए रिक्रूट हो जाता है या बिना इलेक्शन लड़े वो इलेक्ट होकर आता है? यस, कौन? द गवर्नर, राइट? द गवर्नर. द गवर्नर neither writes an exam. The governor nor contests an election. So remember, the position of MLA is not spoils position. MLA has fought election, has won the election. So he represents the people's choice. But the governor does not represent people's choice. He is not a popular person. Popular matlab जिसको लोगों ने choose किया है. The governor is not people's choice. The governor, the merit, he or she may be very meritorious, but then there is no guarantee of merit. Why? Because the governor is merely nominated by the government. Nomination hai. Therefore, even today that we have certain positions which are called as spoils position, jahan neither merit is a consideration nor it is the choice of people. Back then, even the executive in the government was fully spoils in nature. Spoil system. That those who came to power, वो सारा health department secretary से लेकर, district collector से लेके all the public functionaries, they were nominated by the government. They were nominated by the government. There was no culture of, recruitment based on merit. It was basically nomination based on ideological similarity. कि ये मेरे आइडियोलॉजी का आदमी है, ये मेरे पार्टी का आदमी है, चलो इसको इंपॉर्टेंट पोजीशन दे देते हैं. Even today it happens to some extent. There are certain positions where people can be nominated, right? For example, say head of certain departments, etc. Nominations are allowed. So generally we see that those nominations are done probably not always on the basis of merit. So those positions will be called as spoils position. Am I clear on that? What is the meaning of spoils system, patronization system? That the government has the right to nominate anybody without any consideration of merit. So that is called as spoils system. So jab democracy bhi aaya, it could not get rid of the spoils system because democratically elected government, they used to nominate their party workers to all these positions, to the important position. And it was for this reason that there was no professional wing of the government with a capacity to execute all the good objectives that democracy was laying down. Democracy, we are telling the government, हमें ये करके दो, वो करके दो, और पूरा अच्छा law बन रहा है. All the good objectives are getting laid down. All the good demands are getting accepted because the government cannot reject the demand made by people. But then the problem was that people who were made in charge of executing these objectives They did not have merit. They did not have efficiency. They did not have effectiveness. They did not have that kind of skill to implement these programs. And therefore, despite of all the noble objectives, that the implementation suffered. Implementation suffered. And also that all the whatever benefits were granted were only given to the supporters of the ruling political establishment. जो भी benefit मिल रहा था वो किसको मिलता था? Only to the supporters of the ruling political establishment. क्यों? Today we have today civil services are expected to be neutral. Why is your job permanent in nature? Why is it the job of public servant is permanent in nature? Which is one of the biggest advantage of government services. Despite of all, once you get into services, then it will not be like a dream. Then it will be like a regular work, right? But why that work? वो आपको तब भी क्यों बहुत पसंद आते रहेगा? Because recession आए, है ना? The big companies, Lehman Brothers बंद हो जाए, लेकिन आपकी नौकरी तब भी चल रही है. COVID-19, COVID-29, COVID-39 जो आते जाते रहे, your job is still intact. That is one big advantage. But then why it has been given to you? So that you have the courage to say no to the politically elected government if required. No मतलब ये नहीं कि अपने मन से no बोल दिया. If the government wants you to be a part of any political thing, any political agenda, you should have the courage to say no, because the government cannot take away your job unless and until that, it is established that you did something wrong. The government cannot take away your job. Why this permanent nature of job? So that a civil servant, a 21, 22-year-old boy or girl, can have the authority to tell the government that I am not here only to work for your supporters, that I will not be a part of the majoritarian agenda of the government, that I am a neutral civil servant. For me, any and every person is the same. नहीं तो पहले क्या हो रहा था? That the party which got elected, public functionaries भी उसी ने अपॉइंट कर दिए, अपने सारे लोगों को एक जगह बैठा दिया, and then any work that would come, any benefit, any scheme of the government, उसका फायदा किसको हो रहा था? Only to the supporters of the political party. Anybody who opposed was deprived from all the benefits. So the government was ruling with a majoritarian agenda. और इसका घाटा क्या हो रहा था? अब बोलेंगे तो ठीक है, अच्छा तो है, इसका नुकसान क्या हो रहा था? That when there was a change in government, the transition was never smooth. Transition was never smooth. है ना? इनकी गवर्नमेंट है ना? इन्होंने मेरे पार्टी वर्कर्स को, है ना, खूब परेशान किया 5 साल तक. आई एम वेटिंग फॉर द चेंज इन पावर. जैसे चेंज हुआ गवर्नमेंट, लाइन से सारे ऑफिसर्स को नौकरी से निकाल दो. और अब कौन ऑफिसर बनेंगे? जो अभी तक मेरे साथ थे, जिन्होंने मेरे पॉलिटिकल कैंपेन में हेल्प किया. राइट? दे विल बिकम ऑफिसर्स. और अब क्या करेंगे? अब वो जबरदस्ती निकालेंगे कि पिछला ये गलत करके गया और मैं सबको जेल में डाल दूंगा. दिस पॉलिटिकल कॉन्फ्लिक्ट रिजल्टेड इनटू वेरी वेरी अनस्टेबल डेमोक्रेसी. ये जो कॉन्फ्लिक्ट हो रहा था इस कारण से, it resulted into a very unstable democracy. This new experiment of democracy was failing. भाई लोगों ने सेल्फ रूल तो ले आया, लेकिन इसमें जो आपस में झगड़ा हो रहा था उसके कारण there was lot of instability. और इसका रूट कॉज क्या पाया गया? That okay, why is it that we are not able to fulfill the demands that we ourselves are making to the government that we have elected? Because yes, the government accepts our demands, the government accepts our wishes, but then it does not have the ability to deliver on the promises. Why it does not have the ability to deliver on the promises? Because look at the people who are executing. These people do not have skill, they do not have merit, they are not recruited by examination, they are nominated because of their political ideology, because of their political support. And hence came the demand for a professional, merit-based bureaucracy, a merit-based professional bureaucracy which will work in a very, very professional manner, keeping itself away from any political aspect of governance, also ensure that there is a smooth transfer of power. The neutral civil services today in India, uska sabse acha fayda kya hai? That you see that there is always a smooth transfer of power. Smooth transfer of power होता है. ऐसा नहीं है कि एक पॉलिटिकल पार्टी से दूसरी पॉलिटिकल पार्टी की गवर्नमेंट आई, you never see violence, right? You don't see violence. You don't see a sudden change in everything. Why? Because people who are working at the grassroots level, they remain the same. So continuity in governance is ensured. Continuity in governance is ensured. Why? Because today the civil services, the public administrators are not nominated for their ideology, but they are recruited based on merit for their professional competence, right? And this was highlighted by a politician. This was highlighted by the former president of United States of America, Woodrow Wilson, जिसने बताया अमेरिका में that look, why we are not able to deliver on our promises, because the administration is highly politicized. The administration does not have merit. It does not have skill. It is nominated on spoil system. So let's get rid of the spoil system and let's go for a merit-based recruitment. And then came the neutral civil servants. He said that administration is completely different from politics. That administrative questions are different from political questions. Administrative skills are completely different from political skills. So let politics decide what is good for people because they are public representative. Let politics decide what is good for people. Let them set an agenda. Let them set the objective. And once it sets the agenda, once it sets the objective, pass on this agenda, pass on this objective to a merit-based civil services. And now they will be tasked to implement this. He said, in the implementation, there should be no interference of politics. Because that is not your skill. He said administration, implementation is more business-like. Is more business-like because there are money considerations, yes or no? There are monetary considerations. Why today there is so much of halla bol around MG, NRE, GA getting replaced by VB, G Ramji? Because the states are complaining that from erstwhile earlier 90:10 division of resources, that 90% of the funds were given by the center, 10% by the state. Now that 60% will be given by the center and 40% by the state. वो बोले हमारे पास पैसा ही नहीं है फिर implement करने के लिए. So you can come out with all the good law, all the good schemes, but do you have money? Do you have the efficiency? So this is not the domain of politics because politics by its very nature does not guarantee. Politics by its very nature does not guarantee merit. Politics represents the choices of people. Politics by its very nature is popular. Popular है. Politics is popular. कि जो लोगों के बीच में ज्यादा popular है will get elected. And yes, that is why the politicians should have the right to decide. Politics should decide what needs to be done. Why? Because they represent people's voice. But then they have decided कि देखो मेरे लोगों ने ये डिमांड किया है, तुम्हें ये करना होगा. कैसे करना होगा? There is no guarantee of that merit. Some of the politicians can be very well educated, very, some of the politicians are very, top technocrats as well. But then the process of election does not guarantee merit. And for that reason, a professional bureaucracy, a merit-based bureaucracy was created to ensure that whatever objectives are laid down by the whatever objectives are laid down by the state, by the elected organ of the state, that will be implemented by the bureaucracy, right? And this is how that public administration was carved out as a separate thing from the mother discipline of political science, because it was realized that implementing the objectives is very, very different from deciding the objective. Yes, it is democracy, it is a self-rule, so people should have the right to decide. And how they will decide? Through their representatives. But the representatives don't know how to achieve those objectives. That requires merit, that requires technical skill. And therefore, that recruit people who have merit, recruit people for their professional expertise. And hence, this branch was called as administration. And Woodrow Wilson said that till the time that you do not take out administration and put it as a separate discipline from political science, तब तक हम इस पे अलग से special focus नहीं दे पाएंगे. And hence, and because he was the American president, so he had authority, so he ended the spoil system. उसने administration से spoil system खत्म कर दिया. बोला भाई अब proper examination, proper recruitment के through civil servants should be recruited. And that administration is not politics, politics is not administration. That he told bureaucrats that you cannot decide. Decision will be taken by the politically elected people. But once the decision has been taken, now implementation will see zero interference from politics. That now it is your domain. You have to achieve the objectives that have been given to you. So as per Woodrow Wilson, that politics and administration are two separate things. इसको बोलते हैं dichotomy. Dichotomy, they are two separate things. So we have started from ancient times and now we have reached up to public administration. But as I said, that I will not be starting my subject in the first 3 days around, say 3-4 days. Why? Because I will again, discuss some of the other terms. But this is how that the evolution it happened. Okay? I'll give you a dictation now. But उसके आगे अब हम क्या करेंगे? ठीक है? We will study especially about, because whenever public administrators are working, they have to work as per, especially in India, they have to work as per the Indian constitution, and obviously across the globe that they have to work as per their constitution. So we will talk about certain aspects of constitution, certain aspects of constitution, so that whenever I use those terms appear to be familiar to you. For example, say, does anybody remember the preamble to the Constitution of India? We, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, वो आता है, रिपब्लिक भी आता है, लेकिन पहला वर्ड सोवरेन. अब जैसे मैंने आज बोल दिया क्लास में सोवरेन गवर्नमेंट, तो हो सकता है ना आपके दिमाग में आए कि भाई सोवरेन क्या होता है. So I will discuss the meanings of all the terms so that I am able to use them very freely in my class, right? Sovereign का मतलब होता है मैं अपना decision खुद लूंगा. That when I am deciding for my nation, I am free to decide. I will not accept anybody's interference. That is called as sovereignty. है ना? Sovereignty. Sovereign, socialist. Socialist is that I will not allow concentration of wealth in the hands of few people. I will ensure that there is distribution of wealth amongst everyone. इसीलिए गवर्नमेंट क्या करती है? Those who are making good money, उनको टैक्स लगाती है. And those who are poor, उनको सब्सिडी देती है ना? So that there is a redistribution of wealth, right? There is a redistribution of wealth. Sovereign, socialist, है ना? So as a secular democratic republic, so we will look at the meaning of these terms, right? We will look at some ideas, for example, justice, the different types of justice, etc. So that, I am free to use those terms in my classes without any, this botheration that am I speaking something which I have not explained to the class earlier. Fine? Okay, you are adjusting well to the pace of the class? Yes or no? Pakka? Okay, because I would like to develop that, there has to be compatibility in the first 3-4 days. Again, just to clarify, you have to write all your answers in English, right? I am very well versed with Hindi. Hindi is my mother dialect. Appearance is South Indian, but then Hindi is my mother dialect. Okay, so मतलब बहुत बार होता है, some students would say कि सर कुछ हिंदी रखने से ठीक है, and they think that probably सर को उतना हिंदी नहीं आता है, इसलिए Hindi is my mother tongue, so I'm very fluent in Hindi. Equally, I'm conversant in our own Arunachali Hindi as well. But the problem is we have to write our answers in English, right? और आपको कुछ बोलना हो, never be hesitant in speaking in Hindi also. अब शर्माना नहीं है. इनफैक्ट मुझसे तो बिल्कुल नहीं. I come from a rural hinterland of Bihar, so मुझसे तो बिल्कुल नहीं शर्माना है ऐसे बोलने में. You express yourself. But then, especially when you are writing answers, because you cannot write in Hindi, right? You cannot write in any other language. So we will try to have कितना भी हम गलत सही जो बोलना लिखना है, there should be no sense of shame attached to it at all. Do we all speak pure chaste Hindi all the time? No. But do we have any sense of shame in it? No. Do you speak your mother dialect very, very correctly all the time? निशी आदि गालो बिल्कुल फ्लुएंटली बात कर रहा है. मैं रिमोट से एक बार कैमरा घुमा देता हूं ताकि सबका आंसर आ जाए. यस और नो? बिल्कुल फ्लुएंटली. गुड. देन है ना. कभी कभी टर्म फंसता है बीच में कुछ कि उसका लोकल टर्म नहीं आ रहा है तो बीच में इंग्लिश बोल के, जैसे उपाय दोमा है ना. दोमा इज अ nishi word, or but upay I don't think it's a, upay is a Hindi word, right? तो कभी कभी होता है ना, लोग बोरो कर लेते हैं तो उसमें नहीं शर्माते हैं, तो फिर गलत इंग्लिश बोलने में बिल्कुल नहीं शर्माना है. ठीक है, गलत इंग्लिश बोलने में बिल्कुल नहीं शर्माना है. बट देन वी हैव टू मेक श्योर, बिकॉज आवर एग्जामिनेशन इज इन इंग्लिश मीडियम, कि गलत बोल लिख के जैसे तैसे लास्ट तक उसको ठीक कर लेना है. ठीक है, ओके फाइन. So I'll give you a brief dictation of all that we have discussed till now, and then after that I will discuss about some of the important constitutional terms, if time permits, in today's class. Okay. Right on. Give a heading. The evolution of state and administration. Heading is evolution of state and administration. Right on. Early humans guided by their attitude slash desire for absolute liberty lived in within inverted comma state of nature. Lived in the state of nature. Full stop. In other words, state of nature refers to a state where people enjoy absolute liberty. Where people enjoy absolute liberty. Full stop. However, as humans are social animals, absolute liberty is not conducive to a peaceful coexistence. Full stop. One individual's absolute liberty can impede, IMPEDE, impede मतलब infringe, impede or obstruct others, can impede others liberty. Full stop. Hence, state of nature resulted into conflict and chaos. Full stop. War became the norm. Semicolon. Life was short, brutal and nasty. Full stop. Change the paragraph. Hence, driven by self-interest, comma, all the individuals decided to give up on a part of their liberty, full stop. The liberty that members of the society compromised, resulted in the establishment of a central authority, called state. Okay, full stop. Hence, the authority of the state is nothing but the liberty compromised by the people. Full stop. This was a contract. Between the state and society. Wherein the society will give up on its the society will give up on its liberty to an extent thereby providing authority to the state, full stop, the state, in turn, will protect people from the state of nature. Full stop. In fact, Thomas Hobbes, Hobbes, Thomas Hobbes believed that tolerance to some of the episodes of misuse of authority is the price that people pay for not returning to the state of nature. Full stop. It is true that misuse of authority will attract criticism and possible rebellion from the society. Full stop. However, if society chooses to destroy the central authority, on minor or small episodes of misuse, then it will frequently go back to the state of nature. Now see, I'll give you some relatable example. Have you heard of Arab Spring? No. Arab Spring was like, that against their authoritative regime. I'm not saying that it was wrong. Obviously, it was one of the very big rebellion. But it was in the Arab world that there was a rebellion against the state. Because of their authoritative regime. And, people challenged the power. They destroyed the power of some of the top leaders. But then it resulted into a chaos after that. And that, to an extent, resulted into capture of power by some, anti-social elements. For example, you see that you have the establishment of the Islamic State of the ISIS, right? Iraq and Syria. So many a times when there is a collapse of the central authority, that, anti-social elements may take control of power, right? Again, I'm saying that it's not that people's movement is not justified. At times it is justified. But then some of the times it has also resulted into that it has caused anarchy. Anarchy समझते हैं? Anarchy is that there is no order at all. जिसका जो मन कर रहा है वो कर रहा है. Anarchy. So, the bad monarchy needs to be removed, but many a times that the end of monarchy has also resulted into anarchy. Anarchy, that there is no order at all. जो जिसका जहां मन कर रहा है अपने आप को ruler declare कर रहा है. Okay? So that is one threat when the central authority is challenged. Okay? Change the paragraph. The objective of the state has been defined differently by different scholars. Has been defined differently by different scholars. Full stop. For instance, Chanakya defined the objective as protection of people from Matsya Nyaya, Matsya Nyaya, Matsya Nyaya, Matsya, Mats, and then Nyaya, NY. Okay, on the board, please. Matsya Nyaya. Okay, Matsya Nyaya. That defined the objective of the state as Matsya Nyaya. Within bracket, law of fish world. Law of fish world. That is, the big fish eats away the small fish. Okay, the big fish eats away the small fish. Okay. Full stop. Chanakya also desired the state to be a welfare state. Chanakya also desired the state to be a welfare state. है ना, लेकिन वो वेलफेयर स्टेट लोगों ने नहीं डिमांड किया था. वो चाणक्य एडवाइस कर रहा है अपने किंग को दैट यू शुड हैव अ वेलफेयर स्टेट. ओके, फाइन. चेंज द पैराग्राफ. राइट डाउन. As people started leading a settled life, practicing agriculture, there was a need felt for a strong state capable of protecting the agricultural land and establishments of people. Full stop. Hence emerged the monarchical nature of state. full stop. That is, या comma देके that is के लिए comma, that is I dot E dot, that is absolute control of the king. Full stop. The king provided safety and security. The king provided safety and security in return of, the king provided safety and security in return of payment of taxes by people. Payment of taxes by people. Full stop. Therefore, the state was a police state. The state was a police state and a tax collecting state. Therefore, the state was a police state and tax collecting state. Full stop. Over a period of time, the tax burden on common people, और common people पे क्यों tax burden था? क्योंकि जिनके पास सबसे ज्यादा पैसा, सबसे ज्यादा प्रॉपर्टी था, the religious institutions and the feudal lords. किंग ने, ताकि वो उनके पावर को चैलेंज नहीं कर पाए, किंग उनके टैक्स को माफ कर देता था, है ना? किंग जो रिलीजियस इंस्टीट्यूशंस थे, जिनके पास बहुत सारी प्रॉपर्टी होती थी, जो फ्यूडल लॉर्ड्स होते थे, जिनके पास प्रॉपर्टी होती थी, उनके टैक्स को माफ कर देता था. सो द कॉमन पीपल हैड टू पे ऑल द टैक्सेस, राइट? बिकॉज ऑफ, व्हाट डिड यू राइट? Over a period of time, the tax burden on common people, within bracket write down, as the taxes on religious institutions, and feudal lords were exempted. Close the bracket. इसका reason हमने लिख लिया bracket में, close the bracket. So we have written that over a period of time, the tax burden on common people है ना, ब्रैकेट में लिखना, इन्वर्टेड कॉमा नहीं, ब्रैकेट में. टैक्स बर्डन ऑन कॉमन पीपल led to demand for pro people initiatives. Demand for pro people initiatives. Full stop. Further, during Renaissance in Europe, RENAISSANCE, right? During Renaissance in Europe, all the old ideas, including the divine powers of the king, got challenged. Full stop. This imparted courage to the common people. To be more assertive for their demand full stop. Change the paragraph. The glorious revolution the glorious revolution of 1688 the glorious revolution of 1688 presented a strong challenge to the unrestricted authority of the king. A strong challenge to the unrestricted authority of the king. And led to the creation of a Magna Carta comprising of the Charter of Demand as per which the king shall rule. As per which the king shall rule. Full stop. In a way, the glorious revolution sowed the seeds of, in a way, the glorious revolution sowed the seeds of a constitutional monarchy. Sowed the seeds of a constitutional monarchy. है ना, कि monarchy रहेगा, but then the monarchy will have to rule as per a constitution. Sowed the seeds of a constitutional monarchy. Full stop. It changed Rex Lex, within bracket, king is law, to Lex Rex, within bracket, law is king. Law is king. Full stop. Change the paragraph. The recognition of king ruling as per a charter of demands presented by people promoted the idea of a welfare state. Full stop. People realized that self-rule, within bracket, democracy, within bracket, democracy, would be most suited to establish a welfare state. Full stop. The revolutions across the world led to the establishment of republic states. Within bracket, head of the state is elected. Republic state, within bracket, head of the state is elected. Close the bracket. full stop. As democracy was established to prevent excess concentration of power, comma, to ensure separation of power, to ensure separation of power.
सेपरेशन ऑफ पावर, पहले क्या था, सारा पावर किंग के पास, अब गवर्नमेंट आ रही है तो पावर का सेपरेशन, कि अब एक लेजिस्लेचर बनाओ, एक गवर्नमेंट एग्जीक्यूटिव बनाओ और एक जुडिशरी. सो व्हेन द पावर ऑफ द स्टेट इज डिवाइडेड इनटू 3 डिफरेंट ऑर्गन्स, दैट इज कॉल्ड एज सेपरेशन ऑफ पावर.
और सेपरेशन ऑफ पावर का एक फायदा क्या होता है? Like, suppose if there is only one person who is powerful, then his power cannot be checked by others. Yes or no? But suppose if there are 3-4 powerful people, then my power will be checked
by the power of another powerful person. So separation of power automatically results into the doctrine of
checks and balances.
अगर एक आदमी पावरफुल है तो बैलेंस ऑफ पावर ठीक नहीं है ना. सो अगर बहुत सारे लोग
Powerful hai, then there is a balance of power. Why? Because one person will check the power of others. So that's called that separation of power, which also results in checks and balances. So what you have written?
concentration of power to ensure, शुरू से, republic state as democracy was established to prevent the excess concentration of power, comma, to ensure separation of
Power
power
within bracket, and also maintain checks and balances. Checks and balances का मतलब समझ गए कि एक आदमी दूसरे के पावर के मिसयूज को चेक करेगा. क्लोज द ब्रैकेट.
different organs of the state like legislature, executive and judiciary, different organs of the state like legislature, executive and judiciary
were established. Different organs of the state like legislature, executive and judiciary
were established.
Okay, full stop.
Democracy
And the idea of welfare state laid down noble objectives.
laid down noble objectives full stop. Democracy
which is inherently pro people, है ना, क्योंकि लोगों ने इलेक्ट किया अपनी सरकार को. So which is inherently pro people,
set up noble ends, set up noble ends को inverted comma, end मतलब objective, the final goal, right? Set up noble ends,
comma, but lacked the merit and expertise
to lay down an efficient and effective means, to lay down an efficient and effective means को inverted comma,
means to achieve the noble ends. To achieve the noble ends. Okay, full stop.
Can I take 5 more minutes? Okay. Write down. As democracy is populist in nature. As democracy is populist. मतलब
पॉपुलर काम करो जिससे लोग खुश हो जाएं. Is populist in nature. Comma.
the public administrators were nominated on the basis
Of their political affiliation. On the basis of their political affiliation. Comma. Loyalty.
and political support. Put a dash. Popularly called as the spoils system in US.
Popularly called as the spoils system in US and the patronization system in UK. The spoils system in US and the patronization system in
UK. Okay, the spoil system in US and the
patronization system
in the UK. Full stop.
This prevented the rise of a professional merit-based administration. This prevented the rise
of a professional merit-based administration. In fact, the administration was majoritarian.
In fact, the administration was majoritarian in nature.
Was majoritarian in nature and lacked efficiency. Full stop. For this reason, even democracy
was failing. Even democracy was failing in establishing a welfare state.
Change the paragraph, write down. At the same time,
in 19th century, the American corporations, the American corporations
expanded and made huge profits because of
the efficiency, economy and effectiveness. Because of the efficiency, economy and effectiveness, within bracket E cube. ये ऐसे टर्म्स बहुत सारे यूज होंगे, ठीक है. E cube, e to the power 3
है ना. इकोनॉमी, एफिशिएंसी, इफेक्टिवनेस, ई क्यूब विद इन ब्रैकेट लिख लीजिए इसको, ई क्यूब.
because of their
economy, efficiency and effectiveness in their
execution / operation, in their execution or operation of business. Full stop.
This served as an example to the then American president. This served as an example to the then American president, Woodrow Wilson,
who realized that administration is different from politics. Different from politics. Full stop. He ended the spoils system. He ended the spoils system and promoted a merit-based. He ended the spoils system and promoted a merit-based bureaucracy or merit-based administration. A merit-based administration. Full stop. To ensure a special focus and attention. To ensure a special focus and attention on the unique aspects of administration. On the unique aspects of administration. And to promote research in the discipline of public administration. To promote research in the discipline of administration. Public administration, yeah, administration. He carved out the subject of public administration. He carved out the subject or discipline of public administration from the mother discipline of political science. From the mother discipline of political science. Fine? Okay, so that will be it for today's class. Thank you.